Hi, everyone, and good morning. And thank you so much for joining us for our Broadband for All ACT press conference. We're very glad to be joined and welcomed by some incredible partners that have been helping us through this Broadband for All discussion over the last year. I know it's been a very tough year for all of us, but we know that the broadband and digital divide issue has not gone away. It's only exacerbated, unfortunately, here in the state of California. I want to start by thanking our incredible partners. First, we have Jim Steyer, founder and chief executive officer for Common Sense Media. He's also a bill co-sponsor. We have Dr. Ilan Shapiro, medical director of health education and wellness at Ultimate Health Services. We also have Supervisor David Griffith from the Alpine County Board of Supervisors in District 5. And we do have another incredibly strong supporter, Tracy Ryan. She's a rural parent as well as a legislative advocate for rural county representatives of California. We can all do a virtual applause for each of them, but I want to thank them for all of their hard work with us and their respective work in their communities, because I know that they're dealing with this issue just as much as every one of us are. So we're here again to talk about Broadband for All. And again, in the midst of this historic pandemic, subsequent economic downturn, we routinely witness how important it is for our constituents and Californians from urban and rural communities across the state that struggle to access reliable, affordable, high-speed broadband. In a time where internet access is required to access education, healthcare, visit families, stay employed, run a business, everything that needs to function for our economy, we know that high-speed broadband is not a luxury and it should not be viewed as that. It's an urgent necessity. It is an urgent necessity, much like any other utility in the state. We cannot continue to support programs that promote outdated and slow internet. And short-term solutions like the deployment of hotspots, while helpful, are only a Band-Aid in the overall fight to close the digital divide. And I see a lot of nodding like that from our friends here. But we need to think long-term financing for broadband to empower construction of high-speed internet and to promote innovation and competition all over the state of California. The Broadband for All Act is a bold and innovative digital divide solution that will update broadband infrastructure requirements for state funding to provide high-tech and fast internet connectivity to thousands of families across our state. Broadband for All will potentially generate upwards of $1 billion in funding. It will update the California Services Fund by making communities eligible for grants based on their true internet speed. This in turn will promote deployment of high-speed broadband and make it easier for local governments to apply for grants and finance their own infrastructure. Additionally, the bill recognizes that a long-term commitment is needed to develop future-proof technology. To this end, the bill also ensures long-term capital is available by extending the soon-to-be expired funding in the California Services Fund. Again, the only state program that finances broadband infrastructure, and establishing the broadband bond financing securitization account to fund costs related to broadband bond financing and securities. It also includes projects, it will include projects of infrastructure deployment by local government and nonprofit organizations, again, empowering local governments, especially in our rural communities, to access these funds so they can start deploying their own broadband. Right now, the bill has momentum of over 50 organizations, and we also need federal leadership to help us through this process. The bill is co-sponsored by Common Sense Media, Electric Frontier Foundation, and has support from rural county representatives of California, as well as many community supporters from both health and education. It is anticipated that our federal leaders will be providing more support for high-tech broadband infrastructure, and that is exactly what we need here in California. So I'll leave it with that. And with that, I want to turn it over to our friend, Jim Steyer, CEO of Common Sense Media. Thank you so much, Jim.
Hey, thank you so much, Senator Gonzalez, for your personal leadership on this, the fact that we're sticking to it, because we're going to win this year. And to our distinguished guests, thank you so much for being part of this effort. Look, from the standpoint of kids and families and schools in California, Broadband for All is a complete no-brainer. We all know this, as I have 4 kids, and all the parents out there know this, and all the teachers know this, and we all know, and the doctors know it too. You have to have broadband access to be a citizen in California or any part of the world today. And we need to provide this to every single citizen in California, particularly our kids and families who are going to school remotely in many cases, whether they're in rural districts or urban districts. It's an absolute no-brainer. It's a basic need for everything. It's like the air we breathe, whether we like it or not. The internet is part of our daily lives. And education is a fundamental right in this state. And there are literally well over 1 million children, about 1.3 million children today in California who lack sufficient access to broadband. Nearly 1 million of them, 900,000, are kids of color, are either African-American or Latino. So what we see, by the way, is once again, important equity issues where not just low-income families, but also communities of color are disproportionately victims of the digital divide. And Broadband for All, this excellent bill that Senator Gonzalez is spearheading, is absolutely the right solution. And the good news is it's a nonpartisan issue. It matters as much to folks like Supervisor Griffith in Alpine County as it does to me who lives in San Francisco, or to folks who live in San Diego or any part of the state. Rural, urban, doesn't matter. It matters for kids and families and schools and for the future of California. So we are delighted to be a sponsor of this bill again, and we are going to win this year. Thanks so much, Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you so much, Jim, and I appreciate you hitting those points because they're all super, super important. Nonpartisan, it hits communities of color and rural communities the same. And again, thank you so much for your sponsorship on this bill. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Supervisor Griffith of Alpine County District 5. Thank you so much for being here, Supervisor.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank you, Senator Gonzalez, for taking the initiative and working to bring reliable, affordable, high-speed broadband to all Californians. I cannot stress enough how right the senator is when she states that high-speed broadband is a necessary utility that all Californians have a right to, just as we all have a right to universal telephone service and electricity. Reliable, affordable, high-speed broadband is really important for all the reasons the senator outlined, whether one lives in a lightly populated rural areas like I do in Alpine County, where there are less than 2 people per square mile, or one lives in a densely populated urban neighborhood that has been bypassed by internet service providers. We who live in areas that have no broadband service or inadequate broadband service are Californians too, and we need and deserve universal, reliable, affordable, high-speed broadband. Thank you very much, and once again, thank you, Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you again, Supervisor. Again, your voice is very, very important to this discussion. So again, we appreciate your time. So next we have Tracy Ryan. She is from the Rural Counties Representative of California. And I want to thank her for being here. She's a legislative representative, but she's also a rural parent. And so she has a very unique perspective as well. Tracy, I'm going to kick it off to you.
Great, thank you. Good morning. Again, Tracy Ryan. I'm an advocate with the Rural County Representatives of California, but I'm also a parent living in a rural area of the state that has struggled with inadequate broadband service. Something that was once just a minor annoyance or occasional inconvenience has become a daily struggle to ensure my daughter doesn't fall behind in her education. When the pandemic hit and the stay-at-home order was issued, we had to purchase a second internet plan from a satellite provider just so we could all be online at the same time. And that's not using real-time interactive technology such as Zoom, but just to be online. Cell phone service, DSL, and satellite, we are able to cobble together the ability to limp along. But as you can see today, I'm joining without video because our DSL is down again, and our satellite service is not reliable enough for Zoom. So I had to use my phone. School by phone is not an option. It's past time that the state start looking at broadband as an essential utility, and we appreciate Senator Gonzalez's effort to ensure equitable broadband service to all Californians. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Tracy. Even though you're not joining us through video, we appreciate again your voice in this very important time for you and your community as well. Last, we have our incredible speaker, Dr. Ilan Shapiro. He is, again, from Altamed Health Services. We appreciate you being here, Dr. Shapiro.
Thank you so much, Senator Lina Gonzalez. Altamed is pleased to support this bill. It actually bridged the divide that we have in our communities. I am a physician, a father, and part of this community, and I have seen how reliable the technology is, but the access to it is actually a problem that we have. Access to broadband is critical for the healthcare of our community, especially right now in COVID times when we see, how telehealth changes the way that we attend patients that have diabetes, patients that have chronic diseases that cannot go or move around the community. And we know that our communities of color have problems with transportation. They need to actually have their essential workers. Missing a day of work, it's not possible. But thank you, having a broadband access and having the opportunity to have, conversation with their doctor at their homes, the way to take care of their kids, it will make a huge difference. The medical community at large has been actually very, very welcoming of telehealth at this moment. Other community members and as AltaMed have seen how medical patients have been actually advancing in their health and not lagging with all the problems that we have. Then, given that Latino and African American communities are already among some of the most impacted of COVID-19, we must ensure that broadband access is not a barrier to health and safety of our communities. AltaMed, therefore, stands proudly with Senator Lina Gonzalez in support of broadband for all and all the efforts to close the digital divide. Thank you so much for the opportunity to express this.
Thank you, Dr. Shapiro, and I appreciate you being here. You're in my backyard in Senate District 33, but most importantly, you are connecting with some of our most vulnerable Californians. And so for that, I want to say thank you for all you do as a health professional. So we've ended this portion. We all are going to kick it off to Q&A, but I will just say the LAO, the Legislative Analyst Office, recently came out with reports that nearly 263,000 urban families and nearly 227,000 rural families are unconnected in California. That is unacceptable, especially if we call ourselves the 5th or 6th largest economy in the world. So we've certainly got some work to do, and I know that we'll do so with the partners we have here. Jim, did you want to add some final remarks?
I just think what you said, Senator Gonzalez, and what all of our panelists said is totally spot on. Huge need, huge opportunity for California to lead the nation again, and we're going to win this time. Broadband for all is absolutely the best solution for California. So bless you for your leadership, and it'd be great to get questions from folks.
Thank you. Great. So we'll kick it off for questions from the press, and I believe Leo on our team will be talking next.
Hi, Senator. To open up our Q&A with the press, our first question is, how does this bill differ from the most recent 2 broadband bills that California failed to pass last year? Or this year, sorry.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So this bill, we don't have a bill number yet. It will be introduced December 7th, which is Monday. But this bill is substantially different because it does have a solution for funding. Again, it is projected to incur about $1 billion of funding, which could be $70 million just about each year from the California Services Fund with the new fee structure that we're proposing. And then the additional could be the bond financing that we could potentially receive through the opportunity for creating a new fund that can leverage those dollars. So I think that in itself is the largest, I should say, opportunity for this new bill is to have a funding that is structural and substantial and long-standing versus having a sunset that we've had with the previous bill. It also increases the technology standards as well, but again, creates long-term financing and funding for local governments and for many organizations throughout California.
Thank you, Senator. We move on to our second question. What has changed since SB 1130's failure in the Assembly this year that encourages the Senator about her new proposal's chances in the next session?
Well, I want to again thank our partners for working with us on this bill. SB 1130 uniquely was not even created under the COVID environment. We actually created this bill prior to COVID hitting back in February, before the executive order hit. And so we knew with our partners at EFF and RCRC and Common Sense that we knew that there was an issue. And so SB 1130 made programmatic changes to upgrade the technology standards for the California Services Fund. But now we're shifting our focus to also continue to upgrade the standards, but again, create an opportunity for funding that will be long lasting and enable us to make deep investments in these communities that need it the most. But my passion is still there to continue to drive that, especially with all of these leaders here and everything that they're doing every day.
And you know, Senator Gonzalez, the other thing I think we would all add is that the need is just greater. I mean, it's just so obvious that we need broadband for every citizen and every family and every community in this state. And so I agree, when we first introduced it last February, we weren't even in the COVID-19 epidemic. It's just made it clear how important this is and why it's so important for every Californian and our governor and every doc and supervisor and advocate to get behind this. So to me, it's just more and more obvious that we have to pass this legislation.
Moving on to our third question. What obstacles remain in passing broadband for all this session?
Well, like I think every session we have, unfortunately, we're under this, like every session we have to continue working with our partners in the Assembly. I look forward to working with Cecilia Aguiar-Curry on her version of the bill as well. She comes from a rural California, I come from urban California. What better people to work together and collaborate to ensure that our voices are moving this legislation forward. But we will continue to work very closely with our partners to ensure we're grasping all of the issues in this bill. I think before, many people coined digital divide just as an educational issue, but now we're seeing, to Jim's point, it's a health issue, it's a small business issue, it's all of these issues that have just been exacerbated again through COVID. But this is the one bill we will continue to move forward for next year and just ensure we're bringing all stakeholders together, bicameral, bipartisan as well.
Great, our next question. Do you think the pandemic experience of distance education has made the passage of this bill or measure more likely?
Go ahead, Jim.
I sure do. As someone who's sitting in a house where my kid is distance learning right now, I will tell you that every parent I know and every teacher I know recognizes the critical need of this. Also, how terribly unfair, and I think Dr. Shapiro said this, and also Supervisor Griffith, you know, it's so unfair that and Tracy, who's here by phone because she doesn't have enough internet service. You know, it's so unfair that low-income kids and families, or kids who already don't have the same access that probably my children have, are not able to access the internet to do proper distance learning. There's a huge issue around learning loss that, by the way, every Californian loses when kids fall behind. They are, it's a cliche to say it, but they are the future of this state. And so I think that the pandemic experience with distance learning has just made it clear why we were right in the first place to introduce this legislation, why it needs to happen, why it needs to be a top priority, and it's a completely nonpartisan issue for everybody. It is an absolute necessity for all of us. And I hope that the legislature and our good governor will recognize that and move this very quickly and get it done, because we will all win if that happens, when that happens.
Absolutely. You said it perfectly. And I have a distance learning 5-year-old as well in the next room. So we're all feeling it.
Another question. Senator, how will you ensure that you get more projects at or near the bill's 100 megabyte per second goal rather than meeting the minimum 25 megabyte per second requirement?
Well, that's a great question. And what we did with SB 1130 is really ensuring that the technology was there too. We know that there's DSL that's still being deployed in some cases and older antiquated technologies. We wanted to ensure there was future-proof technology, and that we'll continue to use that term in ensuring fiber can be deployed, because fiber lasts longer and it has higher speed capacities, lower latency, lower delays. So you're not sitting here and frozen while you're talking to people on Zoom and your two other children are on a call as well. We have to start deploying this type of technology. It is the future. And especially if we want to ensure that we're not losing, children to learning loss, and small businesses aren't able to get on the grid, and everything that we've talked about. We have to ensure that the technology is there and that it's long-standing and it's future-proof, as mentioned. So we'll continue to use that terminology. Again, this is a very first draft of the bill, so we look forward to inserting more, elements and ideas as we move along the legislative process.
Thank you, Senator.
And I think we'll do about 2 more questions because we're running on time.
At the moment, it's open. We don't have any new questions. So if the press would like to submit any other questions, please go ahead. We can open it up to comments from our other speakers, and I will cue you once we have a new question.
Okay, we can just wrap up. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Shapiro.
Sorry. Que para toda nuestra gente es muy importante que todos nosotros sepamos que en este momento estamos en un punto crítico donde la parte de tecnología nos tiene que ayudar, tanto para la educación y también para la parte de la medicina. Entonces, justamente con esta ley propuesta, va a cambiar la manera que nosotros somos atendidos y sabemos hoy en día que con COVID-19 muchas veces es mucho más difícil llegar a nuestra comunidad, a nuestros trabajos y sobre todo a las cosas que hacemos nosotros como doctores. Entonces, es una de las cosas que puede cambiar la manera que nuestros hijos y el futuro de todos nosotros se puede mejorar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shapiro. I appreciate that. And Supervisor Griffith.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator. I'd just like to touch a little bit on something that I didn't mention before and Jim brought up very strongly, the equity issue. We have in Alpine County, we have some people that are doing quite well. We have some other people that are on the other end of the economic spectrum and they don't have internet access. It's a financial issue for them. They don't have a laptop or a other device that they can use. And that really hits those kids hard, you know, and those kids, long after we're gone, those kids will be suffering from it as they grow up. So it really is an important equity issue for all Californians, and we all need, we got to make sure that everybody has the same opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. And Tracy, would you like to add some final comments before we close up here?
Just to say thank you again for bringing this bill forward again and giving it the good try, and really great information from all the speakers today on why this is so important. So thank you again.
Thank you, Tracy. Jim, I'll kick it off to you and then we'll wrap up here.
Great. I mean, I'm just proud to be with such thoughtful people. And it shows you how this affects all of us. And it's such a, as I said at the beginning, it's such a no-brainer for us to do this. And we will all benefit in the long run. And I'm so glad that Supervisor Griffith and Dr. Shapiro, you guys brought up the equity issue. It's just not fair. There shouldn't be 2 Californians. There's 1 California. There's 1 America, by the way. And I think federal help is going to be on the way. That's the good news. I also think that in addition to spearheading this and having California lead the nation on this, finally, we're going to get some help from the federal government too. And Lord knows we need it. But at the end of the day, everybody out there in the audience knows how important this is. And bless you for your leadership, Lena. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all. And again, thank you all so much for being here. Again, we want to ensure that this new fee structure for California Services Fund promotes high quality, reliable internet for every Californian. Doesn't matter if you're Latino, Black, if you're in a rural California, if you're in low income urban California, you deserve high speed, reliable internet. And we want to ensure that we're deploying that for every single one of you. So with that, I want to say thank you for the questions. Thank you to our supporters for all you do, and we'll continue the fight for broadband for all in California. Thank you again. Have a good one.